Hello everyone. Once more, we are live. We are live. Tonight, we are going to work with Gianni one more time. This is like Thursdays. I'm trying to keep every single week at the same time, same day, so it's easy for everybody who wants to follow it. But tonight is coaching night with Gianni, and the goal here is to, of course, get better, but also to share with you guys my journey, the lessons and the things that I've been going through. So last week we talked a lot about breaking ABS and stuff, and man, like my phone is connected to my computer, and for some reason my computer feels like it has to tell me every single time something updates. So, and I go to notification settings, just turn it off. Cool. And like in general, no notifications. Thank you. Thank you. I don't need like any of these notifications. So I'm gonna now like get some laps in. Yesterday we practiced a bunch, and we are, what is this? Okay, I feel like we're improving. Like the lesson from last time was to not, or to avoid overheating the tires through ABS engaging. So we've been trying to be softer on the brakes, engage less the ABS, and I think we've made enough progress. But not quite. Like we're still far. One of the things that I've done as well, I got my Sim Hub to work. Let me put my water here because I talk a lot. But Sim Hub, I have a like haptic thing on the pedal that helps it tell me like when the ABS is engaging. So the one thing I want to add here is our Discord server. Let me put here, and maybe I could do a few laps before he joins. Yeah. So trying to find here. I'm gonna pin our Discord server to our chat and pin message. Cool. Let's go. Let's go to the track. We have about 20 minutes before he joins, which gives us some time to remember what we're doing. And I'll turn caps on as well because caps helps with the curve shape and things like that. So I put like my all-time best here, the 28.8. I know what's this car or this track condition, so I think it's fair. So one of the things he does here is he goes like flat, and I can't quite like control the car flat there. I go to the grass. And I feel like if I do go flat there, I will have like insane speed during the race. Like the gas here is also tricky, because you gotta hit the gas as soon as you touch the ground, but if it hits too much, it spins. So here we have to point the car. I turn in too late. Alright, let's see what I can do. This was not a good turn, like I should have hit the brakes before going on the gas. And here's where he goes flat. But if I, like, we can hit the sausage. If we hit the sausage, we're done. Okay, so this lap is wasted already. So let's try to focus on getting a few things right. This is not one of them. I didn't have to go as close to the wall as I did. One of the things that I'm working on is getting to know the limits of the track as well, like the... Too early on the brakes there. Too late on the brakes here. Went too much on the brakes. Too much, too much. So far this is an awful lap. Like, there's not much that we can use from this lap. A lot of ABS usage. Not turning on the right spots, not braking on the right spots.
Just set the fastest lap of the session.
So I can go on the brakes much later. And I gotta go on the brakes here on the bus stop much earlier. Like, missing the apex cost me like half a second. It's a lot. It's a lot. Yeah, like, to avoid engaging the ABS, I have to brake earlier. So here, just...
Slow down. You got a penalty? We're cutting the course. Slow down. You got a penalty? We're cutting the course.
If I hit that part of the curb, I get a penalty. So let's the line is more like this line. We gotta hit like just enough of the second curb, the second sausage, to bring us into the turn.
You cut the course. You've got to slow down and give up that time.
Again, right? Real struggle so far. Like, let's reset. Sometimes like resetting the car helps. You know what? Let's remove the delta. Let's focus on our inputs, not on the time. Bit early.
They say you cut the course. You'll have to slow down and give up the time gain.
Like we're struggling today to get anything right here. Second gear here, I can't forget it. I cannot forget it. I feel like during the race I'll have to be a bit more defensive in this bus stop.
Just set your fastest lap of the session.
I feel like this is a good lap so far. I do not put like the delta because I don't want to get like frustrated or excited. And also we're learning how to manage this first chicane better. Like the right angle we need there. So that's good news. Let's try not to cut it off here.
Just set your fastest lap of the session.
I honestly thought like we were gonna be a bit faster.
You've got wheel damage. Looks like one of your wheels is out of alignment. You'll have less grip
Okay,
out there.
let's bring it back home. So 130. Yesterday we were like doing a one. So our optimal lap is down to 129.2, which is good. Let's see the optimal sector. I didn't do the optimal sector in the last two sectors. Damn, 0.4. There's a lot we can improve. A lot we can improve. I think I have like a fast Let's try this. So a bit early on the gas, maybe. No, if I go early on the gas, we're gonna crash. Try one more time. I almost feel like I have to go turning a bit later, because I'm turning in like watching like towards that wall, and if I go a bit later, like here, I'll turn in more like, no, but I did lose time. Maybe I have to go to third gear. Let's see. Let's see if going to third gear helps. It does help. It does help. So we brake. Third gear. So I don't think it was the third gear itself. Let's see. We're gonna have to practice more of this first sector here. Like if you see my acceleration pattern, it's not good.
You've got wheel damage. Looks like one of your wheels is out of alignment. You'll have less grip out there. We got damage on the front end. Looks like your car is towed. You'll need a tow back to pit lane. Press and hold the reset button and we'll come and get you. That aero damage is probably slowing you a lot.
Gianni's online. I'm gonna accept this call. Hello, sir.
Good evening. How are you, brother?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Yes, good, thank you. Good, thank you. It's always nice and funny when I hop on here because I know that I'm not only talking to you. I feel like I'm talking to your stream as well.
Yeah.
It's brilliant. It's brilliant. I love it. But yeah, no. Hope you've been having a good night. Hope the streams all been going well. And yeah. Look, let's start off. How's the last week been for you? Of course, I mean, been keeping tabs with you and of course seeing what's been going on your stream and everything. But yeah, how have you felt? I guess confidence-wise. How have you felt driving-wise? Just give me a little bit of rundown how you felt about it.
Yeah. So it's funny because I had like an in real life race in between
Yes.
our last session and today, and it's like a very, how can I say, the car's like a lemon car. I don't know if you know what that is in the US, like just a destroyed car that they put together to race.
Yeah.
In a very like low competition league, so it handles very differently from any like kind of racing car.
Of course.
But it gives also like the feel like of real life. I'm gonna be honest, like in that car, I'm just trying not to crash on the wall. So I didn't apply like the things that I was working on with you. But
Absolutely.
and I don't think the car has an ABS, to be very honest. But
Yeah.
here, like in the sim, after we finished last call, I spent like I don't know how many hours trying to have a feel for the ABS, and I remembered that when I bought this pad, I bought it used, and the guy has like he added the like that haptic thing on the back, so
Yes.
I went ahead and turned it on like on SimHub, and I've been using that to tell me like when the ABS is engaging, and in general, like what I feel is I'm being like smoother, right? Because now I have to be more intentional about my braking because I have to pay attention if it's engaging the ABS. So I go like a little bit earlier. I go on the brakes. The next lap I go like 1 meter later, then 1 meter later, until I feel like okay, when I go like after this point, is when I have to use more brake pressure. So that's when I'm engaging the ABS. So I try to find that that balance, and this has helped me like again like be more intentional on the braking, but also like that's more like a feeling than anything else. But like, I feel I carry more speed. I feel like I'm having better exits because I'm thinking more than I was before. I was just thinking like let's smash the brake, hold the car like as well as we can, and like dive in the turn and try to do this right.
100%.
So I do think like I improved a lot. Like if I'm being like very honest, I feel like as a driver I improved a lot.
Yeah, for sure. And I think on top of all of that, as you just mentioned, and yeah, that's, you know, amazing signs that you've kind of had already right there. But I think the biggest thing I'm sure that I think I've noticed as well, just by watching, you know, your streams over the last couple of days, I think the big word that sort of you want to find here is efficiency. Efficiency on the brakes is what matters most now, because the problem is that you're not braking, you know, 20-30% harder as you used to, and using that extra pressure to slow the car down. Now you got to make sure that, you know, those last 2, 3, 4, 5% are, you know, being held for the extra 5 to 10 meters, because if it's not, the car's either going to not slow down as much as you want to, it might not balance as well as you want to, it might carry too much speed. And I think, as you'll probably find today, like when we compare it to each other, and even, you know, again, just probably thinking back to moments when you've driven the car this week that I've seen, at least, that, you know, maybe you get those little like TC sort of shutters coming into a corner, or the car feels like it kind of four-wheel slides, or it doesn't have that 100% balance all the way through the corner. It's because at some point the car basically feels like it's going too fast, and you've basically overloaded the tire, basically, in a sense that, you know, that there's no more grip left, basically, almost in one way or another. So yeah, look, I think there's a lot of amazing things that this, I guess, this philosophy that we discussed last week makes you understand. And it's always an interesting one, because I think for me, you know, talking to a lot of different clients, you know, over the years, and a lot of people who've only had sim racing experience, people who've had real life experience, and of course, you know, always putting my experience into the pool as well helps out absolutely massively. But, you know, I think a lot of these philosophies are actually true, in all honesty, for some cars. Like I do have a client that drives Ferrari Challenge in the real world, and at the same time as well GT3s. And of course, you know, been working on the sim to try and improve all that sort of stuff for him. But very interesting to hear from his end that the way that the Ferrari Challenge feels in iRacing is the way that a GT3 feels like in real life, and the way that the Ferrari Challenge feels like in real life feels like what the GT3 does in iRacing. So the kind of philosophies are true, and you know, this kind of this soft braking, you know, it is actually true for some cars. But, you know, for what I've driven, and, you know, what I've experienced, and then hearing other people's perspectives as well, majority of the time it's very much like you're braking really, really hard and really late. But there's definitely some cars with some type of braking systems that clearly, you know, do it in this way that we're learning here. So although, you know, we do talk about it in the sense of yeah, you know, it's not exactly the most realistic thing in the world with the sort of light braking. You just never know. It might actually be what it might be like in the BMW M2, this soft and sort of early braking. But it's actually a case of this style is one that you would honestly use in the real world. I mean, you think about whenever you drive your road car, for example, right, coming up to a traffic light, and when you come to stop, how are you braking? You kind of squeeze onto it nice and softly, and you get to your kind of hardest pressure a little bit later. You don't absolutely smash onto the brake pedal, because then you feel like you're just going to pull yourself forward, and you probably just get whiplash, to be honest with you, because a road car brake is so sensitive. So you kind of have a little bit more of a progressive squeeze. It's very much what like these cars are. With the M2 at least, but very much the case as well what a lot of these tin top kind of cars are for sure as well. So yeah, no, look, I think it's great to have a sort of starting point, and I think, as we discussed last week, you know, this understanding, this philosophy, this structure, if this doesn't start off correctly, and you know, the understanding of why it happens and why we're doing it isn't understood, then it's hard to make anything else kind of happen first. And I think the big thing is, you'll probably find, is like the consistency. Although it might not be exactly where you want it to be yet, the consistency already probably is a little bit better as well. And do you find that that's the case? Like the consistency, maybe not every lap, but starting to kind of get a little bit better too on your end?
Yeah, I think so. I think like from a consistency perspective, as I was talking before, like now that I'm being more intentional about like one specific thing, that's helping me like have something to measure against, right? Because
Yeah.
before I was just trying to measure myself against like my lap time, which could mean like I'm being very fast the first sector, very slow the second sector, and then the next lap's the opposite, and I don't quite know why. But I'm having like the same time, like lap time over and over and over again. But now, no, like I feel I'm carrying consistency across like or during the lap. Like that's kind of I think the biggest win so far.
100%. Yeah, 100%. No, so look, I think it's all really, really good, brother, and I think, you know, it's a nice step in the right direction. You know, it always makes me, you know, makes me amazed how quickly, you know, you can go from doing something for such a long time to then changing it up completely and just having a completely different kind of ideology to what you used to have just from, you know, one little conversation almost in a sense. So, I mean, look, when you look at something like that already, obviously when you look at the telemetry, I think in terms of what we've done here at Charlotte already, look how much nicer that looks, I guess, in comparison to what we looked at last week. You know, so much closer. The structure is very, very similar. You know, a really, really similar approach to what we're doing. And I think, again, it brings me back to what I said before, you know, just about the kind of efficiency type of things. I think now that we kind of have this ideology of like, okay, coming into more medium speed corners, we try to sort of maybe break it about what, you know, 25, 30, 35%. You know, that's our kind of median sort of range that we're always kind of looking for. And then, of course, as we talked about hard corners, we're always aiming for around that, you know, 55, 60, 65%, you know, within that sort of 10% range, I think, in and out for, you know, a low speed corner, medium speed corner, and a high speed corner. Now, I think, yeah, as I was watching you drive, you know, the last couple of days and just seeing how you were going about things, I think I could definitely notice that you were trying to play around with, I suppose, how hard you could brake, how early you could brake, how much pressure you could kind of put in. Because, yeah, once these kind of values, you know, come up in your mind, I think you become very aware of kind of how hard you are braking, but as well, you try to be, you know, you try to be a little bit more sensitive with it almost in a sense. So I think sometimes you can actually go a lot lower than you actually need to, just because you're quite worried if you're going to get into ABS or anything like that. So like the ABS thing, it's not something that I suppose after everything we talked about last week, it's about understanding, but I guess it's not about like, you know, completely thinking about it over anything else. Like you still need to definitely make sure that, you know, of course the ABS is around that 65% mark, but if you're seeing like little flickers as you just rotate in or little flickers as you drop off the brake, this stuff is normal. You know, we can't kind of help that little stuff like that. I mean, no matter how good of a driver you are, it is nearly impossible to get it, you know, completely gone throughout the entirety of the braking zone. But it's just about making sure that basically from the initial peak pressure all the way to as you start trailing off, that it's not really existent. As you just start to trail off right at the bottom, if you get a little flicker like that, that's okay. And as you kind of initially turn in a brake, like we saw at Alton Park there with the double right-hander at the back of the track, because as I mentioned to you, as you're turning in and braking, you're putting more friction through the tire. So obviously it just means that, you know, you're probably going to get a quick little flicker, but it doesn't actually mean that you're kind of hard in the ABS. It's just a little kind of minor flicker because you're kind of rotating and braking and all the little things like that. So I think the big thing that I noticed from looking just, you know, before and just sort of overall sort of looking at this week so far, I think the big thing that's the difference between me and you, of course, is just more so a case of like your peak pressure versus mine, and I guess just your, again, the efficiency on the brake pedal in certain areas is just a little bit different. And what that usually can tend to cause you is, for example, you know, you're not going to feel like maybe the car's slowing up enough. Maybe you're feeling like the car's slowing up too much. You know, it might just cause these kind of two completely opposite feelings for you depending on the way that you approach the corner. And it's just mainly a case of, yeah, we need to try and maybe use more braking or use less braking in certain areas just to make sure that we're carrying enough sort of momentum through a lot of the corners. And I suppose, is that something that you felt so far this week? Like, do you definitely feel like there's times when you've you know, maybe not broken enough and you feel like you've carried too much speed into a corner, that again the car maybe has a full slide, or you feel like you've maybe overslowed the car too much, where then, yeah, I saw like the hairpin yesterday, you know, we brake too early, we brake too light, you turn in and you can basically go straight into the wall because the car's, you know, slowed up too much and rotated. So do you feel like that's a case, I suppose, that you've done this week?
Yeah. So like as you said, I'm trying to find like I'm trying to refine the behavior on the brake and how to find like the right spot and like getting the right braking marker so I can be consistent with that.
Sure.
So like one example
Yep.
that I just gave is the bus stop. Like that sometimes I think I'm getting better, but sometimes
Yep.
I'll brake, and if I turn in like to the left, the car would give me enough rotation that I could go through the wall. And like the
Yep.
next
Yep.
lap, I go so far that I'm almost like in the pinning area. The other
Yep.
part that I struggled was the last part, because when I saw your braking mark,
Yep.
you were braking like, or you were braking much later than I was. And
Yes.
whenever I tried to brake that late, I would have like
Yep.
the ABS engaging for almost the entire duration of the braking zone. So
Okay.
I was
Yep.
braking earlier, because whenever I tried to brake later without engaging the ABS, I would just like fly past the chicane, and I'll get a
Yep.
slowdown and destroy my lap. So I was trying to go a
Yep.
little bit earlier with less brake pressure, but that was
Yep.
also costing me like a lot of time.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. And it's always very hard to kind of say because I think the biggest thing is, brother, is the conditions, you know, and I think we'll have a definitely a topic of conversation today about the conditions because I think yeah you definitely mentioned the other day that my conditions in comparison to yours throughout the week were a little bit different, but this is the problem with iRacing is that a lot of the time every session that you jump in is always going to be ever so slightly different unless you kind of set it up to be the same, basically, almost in a sense. So, for example, like whenever you jump into here, right, and we might have a look at, let's say we go and do, the M2 basically, this week at Alton Park, right? If you were to go and click more ways to race, click test drive, and when you kind of load into here, when it comes up with this event weather just like this, which is the forecasted weather mode, when you click test, what happens here is that this gives you random conditions every single time, right? It's never going to be absolutely identical every single time. And the problem is with it as well is that it's actually based on time passing, the weather actually changes. So the forecast, the time acceleration goes up. You can adjust that, but basically it always goes up one time. So, pretty much every second that passes isn't every second that passes in the game as well. So, what could happen is that, every 2 minutes, the wind could change direction. Every 5 minutes, the track could change temperature. As you do more driving, the track state changes. The track gets more rubber on, the track gets a little bit worse, the track gets a little bit warmer. All these things change throughout the session. And if you're sitting there for, an hour, hour and a half, 2 hours, you could have a completely different track to what you started with right at the start because time's passed, the weather's changed, the wind's changed, the humidity's changed, the cloud cover's changed. All these things have kind of changed. So the biggest thing is that between me and you, there could definitely be cases in situations like that when you were coming into a chicane that you could maybe have a tailwind, I could maybe have a headwind, you could maybe have a crosswind, I could maybe have a crosswind. You don't know, right? And it's always kind of quite hard to sort of say what that is because it can genuinely change every single lap. So what I usually like to try and do, just to kind of give myself something consistent all the time, is that whenever I go and do a test session, I always set it up on this static weather mode, right? So I always know that when I come into here, I select all my settings, I change all my weather, wind speed, humidity, it's always going to be the same. Whether I'm in there for 10 minutes, in there for 40 minutes, in there for 3 hours, in there for 10 hours, it's always going to stay exactly the same, right? So yeah, how do you load yours up at the moment? Do you usually tend to go forecasted weather or static?
No, I go static as well.
You go static? Okay,
Yeah,
great, great, great.
what I usually do, like I go to VRS and I check what is the weather for the week, and
Yep,
I
for
use
sure.
that. But like what's been happening is they've been loading like the fast lap on Monday, which is like late
Yep,
for what I like to practice, and it changes. It
yep,
changes from what they had before, like to
it,
the actual fast lap.
it
So
does.
what I do, I just go to the stack weather, like I just keep it, so I can compare myself
Yep,
against myself.
yep,
And whenever like I want to
yep.
compare myself against them, then I go and change everything as they're doing.
Yep, no, for sure, and I think that's the best way to go about it, to be honest with you, because yeah, I definitely think a lot of people get stuck into that area where they're changing, obviously the conditions are changing every single time that they hop onto the racetrack, basically, and they say one session I'm a second faster, one session I'm a second slower, I don't know what's kind of going on, but it's just because one session the wind might be this, the wind could be that, you know, the conditions could be this, the conditions could be that. But yeah, as well, when we actually have a look at the conditions in themselves, when you have a look at mine here, so this is mine conditions from the session that I obviously did. So again, you know, I just loaded in off and clicked static, and whatever it gave me, it gave me. But you can see here that my wind direction is, yeah, so 10 miles per hour southwest, and your wind condition is 11 miles per hour west, right? So when you're coming into that corner, the way that the wind is probably pushing you is completely different to the way that the wind is pushing me, right? So the big thing is that, you know, your confidence coming into there potentially could be a little bit different to my confidence coming into there as well, which could probably speak for potentially why sometimes you feel like you have to break a little bit earlier, because if you try to break that little bit deeper like myself, you're not going to be able to, you know, you're not going to be able to get the same result. Now, I think the big thing is that in a corner like this, it's necessarily not the actual pressure that's the kind of, you know, what the sort of issue is in comparison to maybe a couple of the other corners. It's just more so the kind of conditions could be potentially limiting you coming into here as well. And it's not only the wind that makes a difference, it's a thing like, you know, the track state, things like obviously track temperature, time of day, humidity, you know, cloud cover, all these things like that make a really, really big difference. And as well, the big sort of topic of area of conversation is this track state usage sort of area as well. Now, of course, you know, you know how a racetrack would work through your kind of real life driving. You know, the more rubber that you have on a racetrack, the faster it is, right? And the less rubber, you know, the less grip there is. So for example, if you go to a racetrack and there's been no testing on it for over a week, it's going to feel like you're on an absolute iceberg. You're going to have absolutely no grip at all, and it's going to be, you know, there's going to be so little grip that it's going to take you a little bit of time to get confident with it. Whereas if you have a sort of track state that you would think would be at 100%, that would be, you know, cars have been driving it for the last 3 days, you know, 50, 60 cars a day, track's really rubbered in, it's got a nice rubbered racing line, you know, a few marbles off the racing line, but, you know, it's really, really grippy when you place the car in the right sort of area. Now, that's the way that I always thought of it to be, right? And I mean, it makes sense, you know, it's just the normal sort of racing philosophy that you think of when you think about track state, but the way that iRacing actually does it, it's completely opposite. So if you go into a session and you have 100% track state, which is meant to be your rubbered up, gripped up, you know, grippy racing line, sort of high level grip circuit, it's actually the opposite. 100% track state is actually the worst grip level you can have on iRacing. Do I know why? No. Is it maybe a little bit different? Potentially. But the way that you actually want your circuit to be to have the absolute maximum condition is having this number set to 0%. That's what
Okay.
gives you the absolute best grip. For some reason, I don't know why. But again, like in comparison to myself, mine was on 0% and yours was on 35. So even there, a little bit in that sense as well, your track maybe it just maybe wasn't as perfect as mine was, almost in a sense. And it might have just given you a little bit less confidence coming into corners like that. And again, because of that different level of grip on the circuit as well, it might have actually meant that, okay, if you tried to brake 5-10 meters later and broke at the same pressure, you probably would have ABS'd because the grip level was completely different, right? And because of that, it affects the friction of the tire, affects, you know, how the tire kind of reacts when you hit on the brakes, you know, obviously affects how much temperature goes through them as well. So you're probably figuring those things out, you know, in the right way and feeling like, okay, well, this is my limit that I can do in this condition. But, you know, the sort of way of going about and the way of figuring out, again, it all comes back to what we sort of talked about a bit last week, where we have to know where the limit of the circuit is. Now, I think on that sort of area of conversation as well, with, I guess, finding where that limit is, I think the big thing that you actually understand, you know, that again is not really different to real life. It kind of is the same thing, but I think it's just one of those overall technique things to sort of understand, I suppose, in terms of overall driving. But the biggest thing that we need to always learn and always remember whenever we're driving any type of track, any type of condition, whether it's cold, hot, medium, anything like that, is that the key area of topic to remember is that no matter what the condition is, no matter if it's 20 degrees, 40 degrees, 35 degrees, no matter what it is, your braking pressure never changes. The only thing that changes is your braking marker, right? So if you feel like there's less grip and you feel like you have to slow the car down earlier, or you feel like you have to bring your braking zone back earlier as well, you never change how hard you brake. You only change where you actually brake. And that's a really, really sort of big thing that I think a lot of drivers do in their sort of driving that I've seen over the years is that instead of, as the track gets colder or as the track gets warmer, instead of just changing where they're braking, they say, okay, well, if it's warmer, I'm going to brake harder and later. If it's colder, I'm going to obviously brake, maybe earlier and later or earlier, later, anything like that. But they're always kind of adjusting their inputs. Now, the problem is that when you're always adjusting inputs like that, you never find consistency, right? You never find the consistency in what you're doing because, again, every race you go in changes. Every official practice session you go in, that changes as well. And you feel like that, from what you went to just in the previous session to this one, you feel like the braking marker is completely different because again, the wind could be pushing you in a bit differently, the track state could be a little bit different, the humidity could be a little bit different, so many factors that could be different that's affecting what you kind of feel. But the key thing is that in your mind you say, okay, like, do I just bring it back 10 meters? Do I bring it forward 10 meters? Do I keep it the same? But you always know, okay, well, this corner I'm braking to 25%, this corner I'm braking to 40%, this corner I'm braking to 55%, etc. So is that something I guess you found that you do in your driving? Do you try to like brake differently and change the pressure, or do you feel like you've always kind of been more just to change the braking marker and keep the pressure the same?
I think like I changed the marker. Like when even like when I'm racing that you just mentioned, right? To go from a session to another, sometimes the track feels completely different, and sometimes you go to like from a session that I had a lot of grip into a session that like you have no grip at all. What usually happens the first time you brake, like using the mark you had, you just go long, right? Oh damn! Like I have to hold this, and that's kind of my cue of I have to brake earlier, and then I start trying like to. I won't say like I'll pull in a lot. Judge on my last braking mark and like how long I went. I try to adapt over the next few turns until like I find the right spot.
Exactly. Yeah. So yeah, I mean it's to a certain point, of course, as well, because obviously in cases like here that we'll look at now shortly with T1, you can see that naturally you're braking a little bit softer than me, right? So the biggest thing that in your mind then you start to think was, well, okay, I'm braking to X percentage. Do I then just bring the brake pressure back? Then you're kind of like, okay, well, that's not exactly correct as well, because if you're bringing the braking back too far because you're braking too softly, you can get the same result by actually braking a little bit deeper, but it's just about knowing where that sort of percentage is, which sometimes is the most hardest thing when you don't really have a comparison to say, okay, well, what am I doing compared to what someone else is doing and where can I make that adjustment? Otherwise, you just kind of feel like, oh, okay, well, I'm braking to XYZ percentage, but I can, just bring the braking back a little bit and I'll still get the same result. But then you always sit there and question, okay, well, why am I losing, 2-3 tenths? And it's because then, well, we're just kind of not actually pushing the corner enough with enough kind of confidence and with enough kind of grit as well to actually get the time out of the corner. So yeah, it's a very kind of interesting conversation, I guess, about weather and how that affects everything. And again, just thinking back to your driving this week, just imagine moments like that as we look through here today and just say, okay, well, like the reason why maybe I can't brake as late as Gianni is because I have a limitation with the wind, or the wind's pushing me in a little bit more, or something like that. So if we just make sure that we're braking to the same pressure, that's what matters the most. The braking marker honestly doesn't matter too much, because at the end of the day, those little things can definitely adjust. And coming into next week, I think what we will do is when I get my sort of first laps in for the week, I'll pull my conditions for you and I'll just match them up to yourself. Because yeah, like you said, when you hop into the actual official week, again, one session it could be extremely warm, one session it could be extremely cold, the wind could be super low, super aggressive, you just don't know. But at least if we can say that between you and I, we're absolutely identical, then, it doesn't leave anything on the kind of table for us to say, okay, well, I'm doing this and you're doing that. There's not any conditions in between. It's absolutely identical in every single which way. So we'll definitely aim for that there next week. Now, for T1, so I think, yeah, in terms of overall structure, in terms of the way you're doing it, absolutely superb. I think when I was watching you last night, I saw that you were playing around with this corner quite a fair bit. I saw you were kind of, going in quite tight, and then you kind of realized you had to open up the entry quite a lot after watching my sort of lap there. Then you got to a really, really good level. But I think one thing that I was noticing by sort of watching your laps was that there was potentially times where on the exit we'd re-pick up the power, and yeah, we would get to that point where you'd feel like the rear was just kind of like on that TC, it was just like all the way through the exit. And unfortunately that was just due to the car not being slowed up enough, basically in one way or another. So when you look at our braking in comparison to each other, you can see it basically looks identical. The structure looks absolutely superb, which is absolutely amazing. The only difference that realistically we have is that my peak pressure here is 35 and your peak pressure here is 28, right? So this is just, first of all, one of those areas where, yeah, when we think about it, okay, what gear are we coming into corner? Gear 4. So what corner is this kind of considered? It's considered a medium speed corner, right? It's not a high speed corner, it's not a low speed corner, it's a medium speed corner. So as we explained a little bit last week, where's that threshold want to be? Anywhere between probably 35 to maybe 45%. That's kind of what our threshold kind of wants to be for a corner like this. And yeah, where are we in our case? Obviously I'm at what, 30, yeah, 34, 35, and you're at obviously 28. So in this area, unfortunately, we're just not being as efficient as we want to on the brake pedal, and that's really the biggest thing. So yeah, I mean, how did you feel here? Did you feel like that was a case, like you felt like the car wasn't maybe slowing up for you as much as you wanted to in some certain cases? Or
It's interesting because the point I was struggling with this corner wasn't quite like the braking in the beginning. I
okay,
see like there's a delta, which means like I'm leaving time on the table there. But
yeah,
the point I was struggling was like we brake and then we turn into the left, and then the car gets
yeah,
pulled like towards the wall, and then we bring into like to the left side wall, right?
yeah, yeah,
And
yeah,
that I had to watch, like to rewatch your lap to realize
yeah,
you were kind of like modulating the gas, the throttle, because I was
yeah,
trying to stay flat and I would just spin and smash the car on the wall. And
yeah,
I wasn't sure if I had to like modulate the throttle. When I saw your lap lane you doing it, it's like, yo, gotcha.
right,
And then that helps you also
yeah,
get a much better entry point to the next turn. So that was
yeah.
kind of where I was struggling there.
Okay, for sure. And I think you can see obviously coming into that you know, that turn 2 area, as you can see obviously we're having to lift off. You can see how much deeper you are carrying the sort of speed coming into that left hand there, and again, you know, that could potentially cost you issues in terms of the car sliding out anything, because obviously the track does slightly fall away from you coming into this sort of turn 2 section. It kind of cambers or just elevates downwards a little bit almost in a sense, and if you're carrying too much speed or too much aggression on the throttle coming as you dip, the car can actually kind of kick away from you, and that's where you feel like the car can get relatively quite loose. But the problem is that you're making up in this spot right here, you're making up for that because you had to sort of really linger on the power coming out of T1 there. But the reason why you're lingering on the power there is because the car is kind of understeering almost in a way. Because the car's understeering, it's because we haven't slowed the car down enough through the actual corner, right? So it's always a big domino effect in the sense. Because we brake earlier, because we brake softer, we carry the brake in the same. You go to pick up the power at the same point. The car doesn't feel balanced. We understeer. Then you have to hold the kind of throttle so that you don't just understeer into the fence. Then you eventually get back to full throttle. But then by the time you get back to full throttle, you're 4 kilometers an hour slower. So then your mindset is that I need to try and gain that 4 kilometers an hour back before I get to the next corner. But then the problem is that you carry too much speed in. Then you have to drop the throttle even more. Then the same thing ends up happening. You end up getting on the power later, and then you basically lose nearly double the amount of speed that you just had coming into the previous one. So it turns into a big domino effect almost in a way. Whatever you do here and here follows you all the way into here,
Gotcha.
almost in a sense, right? So it's really important that we find those last few little percentages. You know, even I think when I was watching yesterday, like into that final chicane, just saying, okay, we need to maybe bump it up to around in the 40s, just so we can get a little bit more sort of braking efficiency going. And that's the big topic of today, is braking efficiency, making sure that we get that extra little last few sort of percentages out of every single corner to make sure that we don't feel like we're ever sort of, you know, having to modulate on the power. If you feel like you get back on the throttle and you don't feel like you could get back to 100% pretty much straight away without obviously a little bit of a squeeze, you know, you can't just go up to 100% absolutely instantly, but without obviously just kind of squeezing into it, if you feel like you got to pick it up and then hold, so I mean like hold in a flat sort of sense, so you pick up your throttle, you're in an upwards positive progression, and then it stops, it turns into a bit of a flat top, it means that you've not slowed the car down enough, because it basically means that you're starting to understeer because you've carried too much speed through the back end of the sort of corner, almost in a sense, right? So do you feel like that is a case quite a lot, where you're having to just sit there and kind of hold the throttle, particularly coming out of a corner like that as you're getting off the brakes? You're having to just like hold? Do you feel like that's something that occurs?
Yeah, it does. It does happen a lot. Like, and I know like from previous coaching sessions that it should be like a smooth line, like going up.
Correct.
So like whenever I'm holding the gas like at 70%, 60%, like whatever percent for some
Yeah.
time, I know like something went wrong. But
Yeah.
what you just said, like that's happening because of something that happened before. So it's not
Correct.
necessarily like an issue at the moment. I'm just reacting to something that is screwed up like a few seconds ago, and I'm just trying to carry as much speed as I can throughout the turn,
Yeah.
which is quite interesting.
Yeah, exactly. So, because I think the biggest thing is, brother, is that it's hard. Obviously with caps, that's great because you kind of can see you can kind of see the actual percentage on the input graph there, which is obviously really good. So you can, sit there and kind of you can see in your peripheral vision what that percentage is, which is absolutely incredible. Which is why I love, that overlay there in comparison to just the normal iRacing one. But I think the biggest thing is that to actually feel what the reaction is to say, okay, well, I haven't done this or I haven't done that, is you're waiting for that on throttle moment to see how the car reacts. If you feel like you can get back to 100% pretty quickly and you end up right out to the edge of the circuit, you've done fantastic. If you feel like you pick up the power and then eventually at any point you have to sit and you hold, it means that you've carried pretty much too much speed into the apex and you haven't got the car balanced almost in a sense, and you haven't got the car rotated in the way that you want to. So that's the kind of the approach, and I guess that's the feeling that you're going to be looking for, I guess, going forward now, in the sense of like, okay, how is the car exiting out of a corner? Am I going up to 100% without issue, or am I having to sit there, get up to about 50-60%, then hold the sort of throttle at a nice sort of balanced area because the car doesn't want to react, right? So does that kind of make sense in a way there, Alan? Is that clear, I suppose?
Yeah,
That
yeah,
sort of
yeah.
that sort of technique there.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect. So all really good. But yeah, look, I think unfortunately with the T2 area there, I think that is just genuinely because, um, yeah, that is just genuinely because of the exit of T1. You've come out of here slower, so you try to kind of make up a little bit of speed as well. You are actually going slower coming into that turn 2 area. So again, in your mind, you probably don't need to feel like you got to lift off earlier because the car just isn't going as fast. But then by the time you carry that extra speed in, go to lift off, then that momentum is on your end. Now you're pretty much nearly about to going faster, and you have to lift off more to react to what the kind of car's doing there. So it starts to become just a bit of a chain reaction almost in a way, and then that's where we start to fall away from each other a little bit. Is that our inputs start to become different, our timing starts to become a little bit different, and I suppose that's obviously quite the hard thing in terms of trying to match up. And again, this is why the conditions can definitely make a little bit of difference because again, you don't know if you feel like you have more grip, less grip, anything like that. You don't know. So that's realistically the biggest thing. But yeah, of course, you've seen my replay here a fair few times, and of course you've seen me come in. But yeah, of course, you're braking it about the sort of the two board pretty much on the right hand side. Obviously going down the third gear, sorry. Trialing the brake in, hopping the curb, and then you can just see I'm squeezing all the way to 100%, and I get all the way out to that wall without sort of trouble. Once again, if you feel like you get to about here and you're just having to hold, you've basically carried too much speed into the apex and it's just understeering now on you. So that's really silly, the biggest thing. So yeah, is that all pretty clear for you? I guess through those little two sections there. I mean, obviously this second part here, yeah, again, you kind of want to feel like you're cracking the throttle just as you crest upwards. You probably feel like you're cracking the throttle as you're cresting downwards, which just completely changes the balance of the sort of car, almost in a sense. So, yeah, is that all pretty understandable for you there, Alan? Is that
Y-
all
Yeah,
quite
absolutely.
clear?
See, if you can go back just a little bit, I want to see like where you get on the gas.
Yeah, yeah. So pretty much, I pick up the gas really early. So I'm pretty much picking up the throttle like just after that seam in the middle of the road here, pretty
Okay,
much there or thereabouts. Just about there, just after you can see, pretty much right there. I'm picking it up, and then I'm sort of squeezing past the curb and back to 100% just as the car basically balances out.
gotcha.
And that's pretty
Okay,
much it, right? So yeah, and then of course just lifting at the crest, and then you can pretty much be back to nearly full throttle just after the wall ends on the left-hand sort of side, and then that's all, that's all completely fine. So yeah, look, I think that area we just need a little bit more pressure. So like I said again, 35 compared to 28, we just need to try and end up somewhere in the mid 30s. And then of course, you'll just feel like you have a little bit more sort of confidence getting back on the power. Now, of course, lines, positioning, all that sort of stuff still very, very critical, but I think you're starting to get a little bit of a hang of where you need to place the car, which of course is super important. So that's all fine there otherwise. Now, coming into this double right-hander here, this section is tough in this car for sure, definitely tough, because you feel like you need to kind of brake hard, but you can't brake hard, which then obviously sort of means that you just have to carry the brake for quite a long time. But very, very easy to get the car sort of positioned in an area, maybe that you don't really want it to be. I mean, I've definitely found my fair share of times the car washing out too wide or ending up on that kind of outside concrete on there on the left-hand sort of side. But I think this is just one of those sort of areas that happens in a couple of places throughout this lap. I think the big places that I can kind of see it are, I think it's into 6 here, so into that first right, as well into 7. I think 9 as well, and then as well into 12 and 13. No, okay, that was fine. So really 9, 9, and then obviously 6 and 7, and I think yeah, obviously 3 and 4 here. So you can see a kind of consistent trend that's going on here. When we watch the braking, so you watch it here, you peak, hold, trail off very early. Coming into 6, peak, hold, trail off very early. Into 7, peak, hold, trail off very early. And into 9, peak, hold, and trail off very early, right? Now, what that is doing pretty much every single time you're dropping the brake just like that, you're basically telling the car that it's done enough work to slow the car down, you've done enough work to get the car rotated, so you're like, okay, well, it's time for me to sort of start rotating the car and drop the brake off and transition back to my power, right? The thing is that it's not. In all these cases, it's not unfortunately ready to do that. And the problem is that this is a style almost in a way that we use in an open wheeler car. We use this style of kind of peak, drop off the brake pretty much instantly in an open wheeler car. And again, we think about that. Why? Open wheel cars probably weigh about 300 pounds less, and they probably are about, well, they go a lot faster, a lot lighter, but as well, they've got a lot more aerodynamics to work with, right? The BMW almost feel like we're in a bit of a bathtub, almost in a sense. That's how I kind of look at it. Like we feel like we're in a big, heavy bathtub. Where in comparison to an open wheeler car, where you feel like we're in a rocket. Like you've got, wings everywhere, front wing, rear wing, side flat wings, under trays with sort of aerodynamics on it. All this sort of stuff like that. That the wind is always helping us to turn. The aeroflow is helping us to kind of load the car up, and all the little things like that. That you're using that honestly sometimes a lot more than the actual mechanical grip of the car is what we're actually using in a tin top car. Tin tops, mechanical grip, open wheel cars, aerodynamic grip. We're using the aerodynamics to help us rotate. So the big thing is that we can use that grip to help us turn. So we don't need to hold the brakes for as long, because if you actually hold the brakes for too long, the car actually slows up too much. Whereas in these tin top cars, because we have minimal aerodynamics, we have more mechanical grip, very much a case of like we need to make sure that we hold our brakes for as long as sort of possible. Now, obviously, I noticed with all these corners, our braking points are probably a little bit different in the sense of, you're maybe a little bit earlier, not by much, just a little bit. But it always tends to be that majority of the time it's earlier and it's also harder rather than it being earlier and softer. So the big thing that probably goes on for you in a lot of these corners here, Alan, is that like you feel like you brake earlier, you brake harder. In your mind, it's telling you, okay, I feel like I've slowed the car up quite a lot initially here, which, in all honesty, you have. You can see right there. Look at that, 10.6 kilometers per hour, right? So you're going a fair chunk slower than me at this sort of period right now. So in your mind, it's kind of like, okay, well, I'm going way too damn slowly now. So I need to trail off the brake so that I don't lose any more speed in comparison to Gianni. So what do? You trail off the brake. You get to about this point right here, and then you start to realize the car's not slowing down anymore, is it? It feels like it's kind of speeding up. So what kind of happens to you then is you get into this really, really long stagnant area where you're just holding the pressure at a really, really low level. And because of that, all it does is means that it's not actually kind of giving you an efficient slowdown. You're extending your sort of slowing down phase by way longer than it kind of needs to be. And in the end, you actually end up losing out, because by the time, by having that really low pressure, because you can't really increase here anymore. If you increase, you overslow the car even more. So what you need to do is, once you've reached that low end pressure, you've just got to hold it there for as long as you need to until the car obviously bites. It eventually does. But look how much later you're able to get back onto full throttle in comparison to me. You get the full throttle there, right? You start throttle initiation there. But the biggest thing is that you actually broken earlier. So it's a fact of, if you brake earlier, realistically, you should be getting on the power earlier. If you brake later, you should be getting on the power later. So you've kind of, in this case, just doubled down on yourself almost in a sense, because we've broken earlier, broken harder, washed off more speed, but we don't really gain any momentum back because we get on the power later as well, right? So as we talked about with like a slow in, fast out corner, fast in, slow out corner, here it's kind of like you're doing a slow in, slow out, rather than a slow in, fast out, whereas I'm doing a kind of fast in, sort of slow out, almost in a way, but you haven't maximized that, unfortunately. And when we look at lap time, it's not a lot, but that's where it goes. Pretty much 7/800ths of a second goes because we haven't slowed the car down enough, almost in a sense, right? And yeah, I mean, what's your perspective with that? Do you feel like that's something that you feel in your mind going into a corner like that? Do you feel like you brake and then you trail off because you feel like you're going too slowly, but then realize that it's almost not enough?
Yeah, like you're talking here. I'm trying to think about this specific turn, which like the time difference is not a lot, but like the behavior is repeating itself, and like it's costing a lot of
Yeah.
time in other areas, right?
Yeah.
And I think like
Yeah.
you capture it like perfectly. It goes back to the getting the last few percent points on the braking right. So I'm either going
Yeah.
not enough or going a little bit too much. And when
Yeah.
I'm not enough, then like I'm carrying too much speed into the turn, which makes
Correct.
me like have to overcorrect all the time, which makes me
Yeah.
like have a slow out because I have to spend so much time trying to fix the issues that I have to go on the gas later. And here's kind of the opposite. Like I went too hard on the brake, which made me
Yeah.
slow too much in the beginning. And then I'm trying to hold the brake and feel like when I get the grip, like the back to the limit of the car. And that also cost me like because I'm doing too many things to hold the car or trying to be as fast as possible with the mistake that I made. Now like I'm
Yeah.
going later on the gas.
Yep, correct. So that's what it is. It's basically one end of the stick to the other, pretty much. It's either a case of, like you mentioned, it's not slowing the car down enough that you carry too much speed in, or it's either slowing the car up too much that then you feel like you're not carrying enough speed in, so that you drop the brake, but then you end up running into that error where then you're carrying too much speed in again. So it's either one or the other, right? And you can see that, yeah, like I showed you, it's a consistent repetition. But it just, again, it all comes back down to that topic we've talked about so far today, which is we need to make sure that those last couple of different percentages are exactly where they kind of need to be. So yeah, coming into 3, obviously coming into 4 as well. Line wise, I think is really good. I mean, and that's the great thing, like looking at the lap here, the lines are really, really good, which I think is super important. But I think it's just more so, again, the peak pressure that's making the big difference. So once again, peak pressure for you, 19.9. Initial peak pressure for me, 13.6, right? So same there or thereabouts as the start of the corner. Start of T1, sorry, that was about 5-6%. Same about here, 5-6%, right? And I guess my peak pressure I get up to in the whole corner is about 15, because I suppose you are kind of just modulating the brake all the way through the corner, but we're not aggressively changing. You know, I go in excess like 1 or 2% between the whole braking zone, but that's just because I'm just feeling out what the car needs. Does the car need a little bit more nose? I might pump on a little bit of brake, then I need to remove it, then it might need a little bit more. Coming to the second half of turn 4, I might retract, and, you know, etc, 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 right? So yeah, does that open up the perspective, I think, for that corner, and just overall, I
Yep.
think a little bit as well there, Alan? Is
Yeah,
that
yeah.
all quite good?
Yeah,
Yep.
it gives me like something very actionable to work on, which is
Yep.
like
Yep.
so what I've been doing, and I think like maybe it's good news, right? Because we can go to the next step. But what I was doing like
Yeah.
looking at our braking markers and
Yeah.
looking like how your line, right? Like how we're doing things, and trying to observe like how much brake pressure you put. But I'm always
Yeah.
I've been always looking the range, like, oh, he's around 15-20% here, he's around like I don't know 40-45% here, and I try to get there, but I don't pay attention too much to the braking percentage as much as I was
Yeah.
paying attention to like am I engaging the ABS or not. And I think now we can
Yeah.
transition to like what's his peak pressure, for how long he holds, and like how can I get closer to that, like how can I have a curve
Yep.
that looks exactly like his curve.
Yeah, exactly, and that's the biggest thing. So yeah, it's a big area to kind of understand, but I think, you know, to see how quickly we've jumped from being where we were last week to already where you are now, and to see that we're looking at, you know, just kind of efficiency on the brake and just making sure that, yeah, we're not now that we're braking really lightly, we have to be very efficient with that and make sure that we're not kind of not doing enough or doing too much, find that middle ground. So yeah, I think your approach is really good. Your mindset towards how you're trying to get the results is really good. It's just, yeah, these are the little things that, you know, if you didn't think about it, or, you know, weren't able to see a big difference, you'd never really think about the sort of philosophy behind it as well, which is the big thing. So yeah, really good job with that sort of section there. But yeah, just try and sort of brake less, hold the brake longer, trail it in, get back on the power, bam. off you go, 10th in your pocket, just like that, right? And of course it lingers, you know, it lingers into the next sections as well, which is the biggest thing. Now, as I mentioned to you yesterday, this was the kind of big area that I did want to show you because you probably, yeah, saw that how the hell is he driving on the grass
Yeah.
coming in, right? It's a big sort of topic here on iRacing that, yeah, not a lot of people really, to be honest, know about, I think more so than anything. So whenever you think of grass and iRacing, right, you think that, okay, the thing's going to go off into the sand, right? The thing's going to absolutely blow up. Now, obviously that's true. It is true. You know, to a certain extent, if you touch the grass, turn, the car's going to kind of slip out, right? Now, look at this here, and you see the kind of grass right there, right? So my graphics right now are pretty quite good. So what I'll do is let me change back to this, and let me go into an area that I'll show you that if you have an Nvidia graphics card, but it really doesn't matter, to be honest with you. It can be for AMD or Nvidia. So if you go into the graphic, this is the NVIDIA control panel, right? If you go into NVIDIA control panel and turn this anisotropic filtering on, application controlled, and turn this to off, right? And you click apply. This basically what this does is it takes away the graphics filtering sort of setting that kind of fills in like the textures, right? It kind of makes the textures all fill in and all look as kind of one, right? So that's what that sort of area does. Now, when you think of esports and when you think of, you know, pro drivers or pro gamers on any sort of thing, if it's Fortnite, you know, if it's Rocket League or if it's anything like that, you always see that everybody just goes for absolutely, you know, potato settings, almost what they call it. They get maximum FPS, minimum textures, and all of the stuff like that. But the thing is with iRacing is that it actually opens up a whole new sort of level of kind of stuff that you don't really see, that they don't really want you to see, in all honesty, because it's also a case of they kind of make that yeah, they kind of do a little bit of things that tries to mirror real world design, but it's not really that, almost in a case like they kind of take a little bit of a cut through, almost in a sense, to make it sort of look in this sort of way. So let me show you this right here, and it's kind of to do with multiple sort of surface zones and all this sort of stuff like that. So let me load up here and I'll re-show you what we're sort of looking at here, because it'll blow your mind, or you're actually able to kind of see when you look at this in a sort of sense. But let me stream to iRacing here now.
So should I have it off?
Yeah, no. So that's fine. Just leave it on in your case. I just want to show you this
Okay.
just for this sort of conversation here. That's okay. You don't need to change anything. I just wanted to show you. So you see this area now, how there's this really big line. You see how there's this line that carries all the way basically down here?
Yeah.
You see how this line carries all the way? So basically what happens here is iRacing, in a sense, is the grass that's like right next to the edge of the track isn't actually always, in a sense, like it's not always instant death, right? There's often like a narrow zone kind of just beyond the asphalt that's sort of modeled with high grip to kind of, in a way, represent reinforced grass or runoff, I suppose, which means that you can place, I guess, 1 or 2 wheels there without the car sort of immediately spinning, right? And this is actually intentional, and it kind of does reflect real world track design, but it is more so just because it allows drivers to actually use, I suppose, in a way, the full width of the circuit. But the thing is that once you go beyond, I guess, this initial strip right here, right? So once you go beyond, I guess, obviously to a certain level, you do get an off track here, right? To a certain extent, if you go too far off, you do get a sort of certain sort of extent where you get that off track. But basically, once you drop past this line right here, this is where the actual grass starts. This grass right here isn't actually grass. It's fake grass, right? It's kind of lower level tarmac that looks like grass, but it's higher level grass, higher level gripped grass, almost in a sense. So what it means is that there's a few tracks where when you're coming into a corner in kind of a straight line, you can lean on like the first 30 to 60 centimeters of the track. And it just allows you to kind of take a little bit more sort of entry speed, and you kind of, you know, it just gives you that little bit of extra artificial turf that you can use to open up the corner. Because you can see, like when I'm sitting in the car here, I hit the grass, turn, and nothing happens. Like it's just like it's road, pretty much, almost in a sense. It's road up until this line, basically. Once you hit that line, you get the true grass effects. But if you look at every single corner on this circuit where there's grass, right? I mean, realistically, the only other spot that there's grass really is in corners like this. But you can see that that line exists right there as well. You see that right there. Look at that. Exists right there. So realistically, from here to here, it's not grass, right? it's fake grass almost. And iRacing does this intentionally, just in case you open it up just that little bit too much and you touch it, it's not going to spin you right into the fence. They do it on purpose, right? So they usually tend to call like grip mapped grass, almost in a way that it's like it looks like grass, but it's gripped up grass to kind of save you from moments like that. So in areas like this where you see I'm able to go flat out, you actually want to use the grass to give yourself probably another tire width worth of track to use, and that actually allows you to carry the speed through the kind of apex, right? And you can get through there no problems at all, right? And that's a big thing as we go forward. You're going to notice that's going to be sort of an apparent thing that kind of happens, right? So has that grass ever been something you've thought of, or have you ever touched the grass where you've seen that maybe it's been able to be driven on, or is it just something that you've always avoided? I guess naturally, I think all of us would avoid the grass.
I naturally, so it's funny you say that, because we're just racing Alton Park, right? And there is a turn that you cut off, like there are two curbs on the right side. You try to cut off as much as you can, and naturally go to the left side. And there's kind of like a curb, and after the curb there's like a patch on the grass that you can actually see, like a white patch. So whenever I see like that white patch, I think like, okay, it's okay to touch this grass. But as soon as that ends, usually whenever you touch the grass after you don't have that, you go like straight into the wall. This area here, I would never think about putting my car on the grass. And I did see I did see you went on the grass, and I wasn't sure if it was like on purpose or if it was like you're pushing so hard to go to the limit that you got on the grass. But I noticed it didn't slow you down. So I was like, he was still fast, like didn't slow him down. He probably just cut this clip because it was good enough, but it was intentional, which is amazing.
Yeah, so you can, if you look at it from this angle, you can see. Let me, you can still see the replay here. Yeah, so you can see. Look at that line all the way down here. That line follows. So up until here, right? This isn't grass. That isn't grass in this area right here. And this is the same at every single corner you ever go to on a racetrack where there's grass. This spot onwards is grass. This to here is not grass, right? This here, if you go into this, you'll end up in that wall, right? You'll have no grip. From here to here, it almost is just an edited version of this. But the only way that you see this is if you turn that option off in the settings, because it actually takes away the texturing. iRacing, obviously, with its good graphics that it has, textures is all in, right? It makes it all one sort of texture, right? You're not able to see this. But when you turn this off, you can see it, right? And that's the thing that I kind of found out by having very low graphics. And this is why a lot of esports drivers have their game looking like they're playing a 2009 Nintendo DS, is that you can see this stuff, in all honesty, right? We have these absolutely, beefy computers, but it's stuff like this that, if you didn't have it like this, you'd never know, right? So, yeah, a really important area to understand and kind of, know that first kind of meter off the racetrack, almost in a sense, obviously to an extent, you can't go out there because it actually just gives you an off track. But that first kind of tire width off the racetrack, you can use that to your advantage here, and it actually helps you to, turn the car in there. So that's a really sort of thrilling area of everything to understand. Again, it's just, game physics that don't really make sense, but it's just, one of those little things that you can definitely, you can definitely benefit from. So, strange one to keep in mind, but hey, they always say you learn something new every day with this thing, and this is one of those really sort of quirky things that you can learn. So, one that's helped me massively, and not use it every track, not use it every corner. Like, I think, the biggest thing I always have asked is, okay, now, do I basically do this on every single track that I see grass? No. The only time you ever do it is when you're coming into a corner that's pretty much in a straight line. So, like a track like Road Atlanta, into turn 1 there's a corner like that. Tracks like Oschersleben as well that I'm sure we'll visit, there's a corner there that you do this exact thing. But it's only corners that you're basically turning in off a straight line. You never want to kind of do it when you're curving into a corner, because it still isn't 100% grip. It's still about, it still doesn't have the absolute maximum grip of a tarmac, but it's pretty much there or thereabouts the same, So it's just, a really critical one to sort of make sense of. So, give it a go in your sort of sense if you want to turn it down. I mean, again, beware that it does look very bad, and it's not very eye appealing. But again, you start to kind of say, okay, well, what actually benefits me in terms of, like, I can see where everything is on this racetrack to the absolute 100%. where can I kind of do it to sort of see where that point is. But I know where that point is now, right? So I don't need that anymore. I know that every bit of the grass off of that section is okay. I use it anyway. But for a long time, I had it like this just so I could, understand where that sort of point is. So again, it's an important area to understand. Because yeah, it's just one of those quirky iRacing physics things that yeah, you probably see a lot of people do, like myself in that situation, be like, well, why is he driving on the grass? It doesn't really ever make sense. So yeah, a big sort of one there. But look, 6 and 7, I think it's the same situation as we just talked about at 5. In this case, we broke at the same spot, we broke to the same pressure. Unfortunately here, we just trailed off the brake a little bit too early, right? And the same sort of thing occurred. Obviously, in that moment, you felt like you'd slowed the car down enough. You trailed off a little bit sooner. You picked up the power, and then you just you run into that same position again where you had to pick it up, hold. Then you never really even got back to 100%. And then before you got to that level, you had to drop the brake, hit the throttle again, and get back on the brake. And the same thing occurred right there, right? So yeah, you can just see how the same consistent thing is kind of happening in one way or another. So it's just more so about like almost in a sense, you drop your brake whenever you make that big turn in point, right? You're always dropping your brake where you're kind of making that big rotation sort of point. But again, it all comes down to what you've done in the previous few corners as well, because if you've carried in not enough speed into that corner, your turning point is going to feel a lot earlier. But this is that topic as always that I've always mentioned, man, is that like it's a domino effect. Whatever you do literally from here, it follows you through all the way until you cross the start finish line once again, coming into the final corner. But then you've got to make sure that you get the final corner right, because otherwise your next lap starts off on the back foot already again, and you keep chasing your tail. But the problem is that yeah, coming into somewhere like 6, because you had to lift off at the previous corner, you're already 6 kilometers an hour down. So even though you brake at the same spot, you brake to pretty much the same pressure, you probably feel like you want to drop the brake off because this is where the car's turning. Whereas for me, my car doesn't start turning until over here. I'm still oversteering. So it's very difficult because all these little things, because they're not the same, it makes our inputs a little bit differently. But it just again shows you that every little different sort of adjustment that we have in comparison to each other, it makes a really big difference almost in a sense as well. And that's really that sort of biggest thing. And it's the exact same coming into the hairpin, brake a little bit earlier, you're coming in again, maybe, you're actually coming in slightly fast here than I am. So you brake a little bit earlier, you brake to the sort of same pressure, but once again, you feel like you've slowed the car up enough, you start to kind of turn into the corner, you drop the brake, but then once again, once you get back on the power, the car doesn't feel balanced, so you have to kind of pick up, hold, then you get to 100%. So are you starting to see the common trend of what's kind of going on here, Alan? You see how it's kind of more like a bit more of a reactive input rather than just consistent structured input that you've kind of almost got in the right way?
Yep. Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay. So that's the big thing. So yeah, that 6-7 area there, that right left, I think that's just a timing area. I mean, as you obviously found, I see you were talking about light posts and all that sort of stuff, over the last couple of days and positioning markers. So that's all okay. But I think in a sense, it really doesn't matter, because you can see here, you're perfectly braking in line with me here. You're braking a little bit earlier than me there, but in both cases, you're braking absolutely perfectly, but then also a little bit earlier, but we still get a little bit of a different result to each other, right? And it's just because, unfortunately, because of the previous corner, because of the way we're sort of driving the car, we're not getting that same result. And that's the problem that we're sort of running into, almost in a sense, right? So, yeah, that's the really, really sort of big important thing. And I suppose the same thing follows into turn 9. So I think here actually wasn't much as bad. I think this was honestly a lot better. I think it's just more so a case here that we just unfortunately broke a little bit earlier, but it's down to what we talked about before, where we brake earlier. Obviously then you hold your brake for longer and earlier, so of course then you trail off a little bit earlier. But then the problem is we know as this corner, it can get pretty bumpy. So if you're not kind of holding the brake where you kind of want it to be the whole way through, you run into this sort of issue where, the car might land over the bump slightly weirdly, or it might not land over the area you kind of want it to perfectly, and all that sort of stuff like that. But yeah, I mean, braking marker wise, where I'm looking at here is I'm pretty much looking at the 5 board, right? I'm looking at to try and see whenever I get to this 5 board on the right, that's pretty much where I jump on the brakes. Just as it passes my windscreen, that's pretty much my braking marker. And then, yeah, I think, based on what we were doing between one another, obviously going down to 3rd, hopping the curb on the inside there, obviously then hopping the curb on the right side there, and then you're back on the sort of power.
This
And yeah,
is
as
where I
you sort of figured
struggle.
out. Mm,
So
yeah,
like,
where you struggle. Yeah.
yeah, because like the problem here, what I found out, like the first one is fine. The second one,
Mm-hmm.
there is like a very like there's an optimal time for you to go back
Yeah.
on the gas. If you go too
Yeah.
early, you go straight into the wall. If you go too
Yeah.
late, you spin. And if you
Yeah.
eat too much
Yep.
of this sausage on the right side, you get too bumpy, and then you either spin or go to
Yeah.
the wall.
Yeah. Yeah. No, exactly. So I suppose that's the biggest thing of like bringing the braking in a little bit later as well. You think about it in a sense, if you brake that little bit deeper, so I mean, in comparison to you and I mean, distance between me and you here is what, 06 to 18. So yeah, about what, 20, well, what was that? Yeah, probably about, yeah, so probably about 12-ish, maybe 15, 12 to 15 meters, somewhere around there. But, you know, I think the biggest thing is that when you brake that little bit earlier, it's going to make everything sort of happen a little bit sooner for you here. So where I'm still hard on the brakes at this point right now, you're probably already a little bit softer. As I get to this point right now, you're as well probably a little bit softer, which is the case. When I'm at this pressure right here, you're at 7%, I'm at 21%, right? So where I'm still loading over the front nose, you're basically trailing into the corner. Now, when you hit this apex, you don't really have a lot of pressure on at this sort of time right now. So when you hit this curb, you probably actually feel like the car's carrying a little bit too much momentum. That when you hit this curb, you run into a lot of issues very quickly because you attack this curb too aggressively and you just kind of overshoot the corner. But you know, if you know that you've broken a little bit later, obviously breaking to our, you know, our normal what, 50, 55, 56% that we're both doing here, you know that you're going to be carrying that brake in a little bit deeper because you need it to keep the car slowing down. If you have already started to trail off the brake and you're holding at the bottom here, which is what we talked about again today, I mean, when we look at this sort of area, once again, and look at it in this sort of sense, right? See how right at the bottom here, just as we're turning into the left and going into the right, as you see, as you're starting to turn to the right, look at this, 21% for me, 7% for you. As you hit this curb, look what's happening to the speed. Coming in 5.8, 3.7, 1.4, 0.07, 1.8, right? As you hit the curb, you're coming in with momentum. You're coming in with forward momentum. I'm coming in with backwards momentum. So when your car hits the curb, it can either fling, it could understeer, could snap, it could go into the wall, it could bounce weirdly, it could spin you out, you don't know. Whereas for me, I know that every time I'm going into there, my car is still slowing down. Your car is still slower, but you're speeding up, right? So you're attacking that curb with a bit of speed up motion, whereas I'm attacking that curb with a more slower momentum sort of bit of motion, right? So again, it brings back that criticalness of where we're braking, how late we're braking, how early we're braking, how hard we're braking, how much we get off the brake early, all these little things all making a really, really big difference to everything that we're sort of doing almost in a way, right? So it's just the big topic today that I think efficiency, consistency, and as well just, I suppose, overall understanding of how hard, how soft, you know, all these little things, how early, how late you kind of want to be on the brakes. But I think more so than anything, making sure that even in your mind when you maybe feel like the car's slowed down, it's actually not, right? And it's until you realize it's too late when you realize that it isn't actually slowed down. But that's the trick. It tricks you into thinking the car's slowed down, but you've just got to trust that it isn't every single time. And it's more safer to kind of carry more brake for longer rather than carry less brake for longer and feel like the car doesn't actually turn, right? And I suppose looking at the last corner, in all honesty, this was actually probably the best out of them all. I mean, it actually cost you probably the most time through here. But I think in this sort of case, it was just more so an area of, again, that little bit of sort of braking inefficiency through the middle. You can see how there's like there's 4%, 4%, 4%, 2%. Then here you can see 8%, 10%, you know, where we're just dropping the brake a little bit differently to the one another. And the problem is that I've had that extra, you know, 50 to 100 meters of kind of harder braking through the middle, which just has allowed me to kind of get a little bit more efficient braking sort of done. So you can see, once again, even though when something looks really, really good like this, those little incremental differences between, like, you know, 2, 3, 4%, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9%, all those little differences, they don't seem like a lot over the long run, but when you're comparing to myself, those are the little things that are going to really cost you so much time, I suppose, in a way, and that's going to be the really biggest thing. So yeah, Alan, that's all everything there today. I think a lot of information. And I'm sure you've been taking a lot of notes there, which is obviously great for me to sort of hear. I think I love when people take notes like that because yeah, obviously I talk about a lot, I say a lot of things, and it's hard to remember it all. But yeah, a few really sort of big key topics there. I think the focus on going into next week, and I think it's more so amazing to see how quickly that structure's improved from yourself. Now I think it's just about refining it, understanding it, applying it, and giving yourself just a little bit of a different point of view coming into a corner. And I think that's really what's just going to help you give yourself more track understanding, but as well just allow you to maximize the corners a little bit more. So yeah, what's your thoughts and everything, brother? How do you feel?
No, I feel this was super helpful. Gives me like something to build on what we were doing last week, which is like, okay, now that I understand the 35, 45, like 65% rules of the braking, I think like the way or what I should have in mind is don't be afraid to hold the brake at like a higher pressure for a bit longer. So I'm trail braking like too early, going down too fast.
Yeah.
So in my mind, like I have to focus on that and see how that relates to the ABS itself. And don't worry too much about the ABS now. You got like the points. So more on the shape and how that's going to result like in the speed, like on the turns, on the corners and everything else.
Correct. Yep, correct. And yeah, I'm really impressed to see how quickly you've adapted to it. I mean, yeah, this is honestly, it's like that, what we talked about last week, that's something that I can spend a really long time with some clients I've had in the past. Like some people get it really quickly, some people get it, it takes a little bit more time, and that's okay. Everybody's different, but I think, yeah, to see that you've grown and adapted to that really quickly, it just helps us, I think, more so than anything, because it already moves us past that main sort of area that we're dealing with. So yeah, I think that's really good, and it shows that you have a lot of natural talent and natural skill as well, which is amazing for what we do here, because it helps us out tremendously. So yeah, look, take that all on board, try it out, give it a go, give me your sort of feedback with it all, and yeah, we'll obviously have a look next week and see what's going on then.
Perfect, man. I really appreciate it.
Perfect. Alrighty, all good, man. Appreciate you as always. Enjoy the rest of your stream, and yeah, thank you as always to everyone for watching. And yeah, if you have any questions as always, you just let me know, and yeah, we'll touch base next week and have a look where we're going in terms of all this stuff.
Absolutely, man. Thank you very much.
Perfect. Thank you, man. Have a good night and see you soon.
See you soon. Bye.
Thank you, Bella. See you, man. Bye.
All right, that was a very good stuff. Very good stuff. Let me find this here. Hey, Storm. Did you just join, or like did you get more of the? Like, it was very good today. So basically, and I got some notes here. Let me take like the final note because I want to make sure I capture. Focus. So basically the notes, like in the very beginning, you talked about setting the static weather, and he was explaining that whenever it's like in iRacing, whenever, okay, so like you got a good portion. I don't know if you saw him talking about the grass. So basically, static weather, track usage 0% in iRacing is better than 100%. In real life, it's the opposite. So whenever like we're max grip set to 0%, when track conditions change in terms like of wind, grip, and everything else, we should not change the braking behavior. What we should change, and when I say the braking behavior, I mean like the curve. What we should change is the braking marker. So if you brake like 60% in a corner, you continue braking 60%. You might brake like a few feet before or like a few feet after your regular like marker, but you don't change how you action the brake. Feedback was like braking improved, but we're still like away from the right percentage, and it's making a huge difference right now. So during the last week, we got the mindset of not hitting the ABS. Now it's like, now that we got this down, we have to like increase the efficiency of the braking. That's the term he was using, meaning if we can use like 63% of brake pressure in a turn, we should not use like 62, 61 or 64. It should be like 63. So getting that down, and then we have like his slaps to compare and to learn that. And the other thing that's interesting, like understeering means we didn't slow enough, which is obvious. But thinking about that when I'm racing, like when I'm practicing, or like when we are practicing, we can think of like if we're understeering, maybe we didn't hold the brake pressure at the right point for time enough. Maybe like we trail brake too early. That's my problem. That's what's happened to me. And the focus is holding the brake on the top pressure for longer. The fake grass was insane. I don't know if Storm you caught that, but he was explaining that the grass has an area that's like actual grass type of thing that slows you down, makes you spin, but like maybe the 2-3 feet away from the track, that's kind of fake grass, and there is some grip there, and that's true for almost every single track, every single part of the track. So in this track specifically, we can use a bit of the grass in one of the turns because that gives us more space to carry like a flat out, and that's like a 10th right there. Yeah, exactly. Like the safe versus unsafe grass. So do you want to guess what we're going to do now? We're going to test drive. So I won't change the track conditions because I want to be able to compare apples to apples. Right? But the first thing actually you should do is, let me see if I can open VRS with his stuff. Because I want to get like VRS. Let me put here teams. I'm in his team. Can I find him here? Oh, come on. We're opening, let's see, Virginia. Let me see the car. Let's see the beam. I'm trying to find his stuff. I think it's this one, Charlotte. Right? Yeah. So what I'm gonna do here is get his, it doesn't really matter. What I'm gonna do is get his max speed. Oh, what's going on? Don't we have the data? What I'm trying to avoid is like watching the full replay just to get this information. So let me see me. Out of these, which was my fastest one yesterday. Yeah, VRS is being VRS, so let's try again. So if you don't know, like VRS sometimes does VRS stuff. So this is his, let's see me. Yeah, not loading. So I will have to go to his I want to see his lap again. And I want to take notes on the max brake pressure he's using in every single corner. So use that as a reference because that's our next step here. So replace this one. And I'll see like where I'm going to take notes. I'll take notes here. Let me take a blank sheet. So that's going to be M2. At Charlotte. So we have, where is it? Turn 1. Then turn 3. This is flat. So let's see here. And the other thing that was interesting is like his where he catches the gas here is earlier than like the apex. So 35. Let's see, 35, 35. So turn 1 is 35. Flat. 50%. It's like 15%. I think that's turn 3. So these are going to be our references for the lab. Here's the fake rest thing. Was it 33% here? I was looking at the grass. It was. And he goes on the brakes like S is going up, not down. So turn 5. That was 33, right? Yeah. Let's see. In here, 51, 50. And then bus stop. %. Then here we're talking about 58. I saw 58, 58. Okay. He holds it for a long time, like he's turning at 50%. And then he uses the brake all the way to the end. So chicane 1, 58%. And I think it's like 24% on the first part, right? Like when he hits here, he's at 24%, I think. There you go. 25-ish, and then here he's still holding at like 1%. I'll put like 2%. And then let's see the next one. $44, $49.50, $51, $52. So that's like interesting because he goes up. Chicane 2 starts at 44%, then peaks at 40, like 50 something percent, right? 52. Okay, we have a guide here. So 35, 15, 33, 51. Okay, let's try. Let's try to replicate what he's doing, and let's try to get down like to the few less percentage points in the next like 1 hour or so. One thing that I did create, like in the meantime, is a song for whenever we win a race, which doesn't happen often. I think I've won like 12, 13 races so far, but I created like an AI generated song. I don't know if I should show. I'll show now because I'm super excited about it. Let me see how many times I won a race. Maybe here. Stats, sports car. 10. I won 10 races with sports car, 3 races with the formulas. And so it's rare, but might become more common going forward. But basically, I'll show you guys. So that's it. Like every time you hear that song, it means happiness. It means we won a race. But for now, let's like here he was at 15%. So let's think about that. The tires are still cold, so I'm not gonna push like 'cause I don't want to hit the wall. But fake grass here, I can kind of see it. Like if I go too much, as he said, we get like the off track. Then he brakes on here. That's 35%. 35, right? 33%. Then here we go to 51%. Turn in. Yeah, man, that's the goal. That's the goal. Like I decided to share because I don't think I'm gonna win anything anytime soon, unless I force it. But we do have something that we can look forward to. And this was 50-something% as well. Like he brakes later and he holds for longer. Oh, too hard. Like it was not good. I was not smooth on the steering wheel. So let's go like the out lap here, just as we would. So this is a 15%. Where is the 15%? 15% is nothing on my pedal. Like. Okay, so it's touching my pedal. If I just touch my pedal, 15%. This one should be flat. We have to go way less. Like just hold here. Like you see. And here's like the 33%. Here's gonna be the 51%. Bus stops 51% and 58, 24, and 1. So we can use more brake here and we can go later on the brakes. So yeah, I went. No, that wasn't good.
Slow down. You got a penalty for cutting the cord.
And the next one is 44 and 52. So we actually increased the brake pressure during the turn, the corner. And I think that's because like if you go full in the beginning, we engage the ABS, so it makes sense. Too late of a turn-in, but brake pressure was there. 50% here. Now just a gentle touch. And we're gonna like pick up the yeah, it's a good point. I wanna try like the let me try a few laps. But I think I have a very good point. Let's try a good exit on the first turn and then we do that like several times until we get it right, until it feels it right. It's a good point. You see, like, that's what I should have avoided. Car is broken.
You've got wheel damage.
Yeah, I'll set like the reset point as soon as possible. I'm just do the like outlap, to get some sort of temperature on the tires. We almost had it. We almost had it. We almost had it.
You cut the course, you've got to slow down and give up that time.
Okay. I'll stop saying I'm gonna go take easy and going hard. Let's try. Let's just try. Because otherwise we won't practice anything, right? And we want to practice something here. So the 15% we have it. I will not go onto the grass right now. Lift, turn. Okay, okay. Hard, but I did. 33% here. 51% here. And now I'm gonna brake a bit earlier. But let's use the 58%. Yeah. It looked bad, but it wasn't as bad as it looked in terms of inputs. So okay, 35% here. I don't think I ever reached 35%. That's why. So that one of the differences, I'll show you guys. Like what's happening here, I brake here, and then I'm thinking about going on the gas as I hit the apex. Which kind of like invites me to release the brakes earlier and carry more speed, like right? And he's actually, let's go to reset. What he's actually doing, he brakes, oh, too much, but he goes on the gas here. And that's why he can brake with more pressure. And that's why he carries better speed, like. Okay, we're gonna learn it, we're gonna learn it. We are gonna learn it. No, too aggressive on the inputs. No, 20%. I don't think it was as bad as it looked, to be very honest. No, not enough. Late on the gas, late on the gas. Yeah, like you see, how it becomes just a nightmare. We're gonna find, like, this is gonna be an exercise of doing and redoing it. Nope. Until we get the right. What's going on here? Let's think about it, okay? This is the same brake pressure. Okay, on the 2. We didn't even get close to the apex there. Yeah. Let me see one thing here. No. If you don't go 35%, you miss the... Okay, so I'll select the full sector here. Let's... I think we're getting somewhere. We are getting somewhere, you see? First and foremost, like I can already feel like where the 35% is without having to look, so. And now because I'm carrying a bit more speed, which is good, I have to find like a different you see, like I have to let's go smoother on the gas. Hard. It is hard. Too early, I guess, yeah, too early. So I can't go down to 0, I have to go like down to 50 maybe. Ah, yeah. No, too much here. But we're getting better. We're like getting maybe like 50% right. That was good, actually. I missed the apex. Problem of missing the apex there is that like it's gonna cost us this exit speed here, you see? Yeah, like if you do it wrong, you have like a poor entry for everything. So too much. This is not an accident when I have in the race because you just take like half of the field with us. Close. That was close. Too fast on the gas here. No, I have to open up more, a bit more. I have to trust the grip, so... Nope. Okay, now we're gonna try to work on this second turn as well. If you get the first one right, we're gonna proceed to the second one. I think I should go like on the... Yeah, you see, like that's still like not good. No. Nope. Okay. Couple more here. I feel like I'm turning too late. This flat one is insane. Like, it's insane. Yeah, that's not good. So I'll consider like anything under like a 10 good enough, like for purpose of practice. And we're gonna measure at the end, of course, right? And crashing is not good. I think I'm going late on the brakes here. I think I can go a bit earlier. Let's do it. $40 was too much. Too much. It's insane. Like, I can see like on his replay how much he fights. Like, not he fights, but like how much work it takes to keep the car like... No. I'm trying to go a bit earlier on the brakes here. Just like slightly earlier. So I can go early on the gas. It's gonna crash the wall. Yeah, I open up too much. Let's try again. I don't think it worked, right? What did it say? Would you agree? Didn't work out? So this first turn is the turn that we have to get like right, because what happens here is people are gonna be fighting, like diving, and like in any kind of spin, any kind of wall here is very punitive. Let's try one more time. Maybe I have to like correct more. No, no. Let me try like lifting. So he actually turns like super early if you look. I'll try like a bit later, just so you see. Let's go on the grass. Later. Like later this happens and I think it's too late. But maybe you have a point. Maybe you have a point. Maybe it was like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Like if I turn too much and go on the gas too hard, it's gonna be like trash. So not only working on the brakes here, but also working on the gas. Almost saved. Almost saved. So I'm gonna slightly lift here. Just so we... Just so we remember the full track, right? Because doing the same turn like 100 times in a row, it's a bit cumbersome. So here we're gonna go on the brakes on the light. All right. No, 40%. You see like how it takes me some time to go full on the gas and he goes like... Not bad, not bad, not bad. Keep it up, keep it up. Not bad. I did lift a bit there. Missed the apex by 12 cars. Let's go. We might be able to like improve our lap. Let's see. Like, if you think about, we're just 2/10 below our fastest lap, which is not bad. Oh, off track. Which is a shame, because... Let's see here. Like, if you think about... Last lap was 0.17 slower. We're doing well. We're doing good. So like I was telling him, like... Being able to be a bit more consistent. Ah, yeah. That wasn't good. The exit killed us. Like, we're being consistent just because we know how to, like, what to do, like, for aiming. So we went from 0.17 to 0.21. It's like 400ths of a second. I don't think that's bad. I think it's good. We're being consistent. Maybe like the angle on the second curb is not good. But I think, like, given how much time we're gaining... Oh, no, we missed it. We never reached the 50%. We
Cut
never
the
reached the
cord. You've got
50%.
to slow down and give up that time.
We are very close
We've got
to
big
getting
problems with that engine.
our
I bet
fastest
you
lap
lost a lot
here.
of power.
And
Your car has
just
too much damage. We've got to fix it.
fixed. So like this, when I carry the gas this much, it's wrong. It means I'm carrying too much speed, which in this case, like I should be going later on the gas, let the car roll more. That's a good point. Like what I'm still trying to work on is the first ones, because the first one is going good, and I'm seeing like if I can carry. Yeah, I couldn't. I'm trying to see if I can carry like throughout the lap. But that's a good point. Let me work on the bus stop. Let's work on the bus stop. So I think here we are pretty confident, right? That we can be like consistent here and here. Too much. And here I have like, you see, let it carry. And then like, because I'm braking too early, I'm getting too much rotation too early too. So I think our next step is work on the flat one. I think turn one, let me see if I have my mouse here. So I think, let me hit the brakes because this is going to get speed. This is where we start. I think these turns here are good, right? All the way here. I think we're getting like we're doing it well. Right, like minus like -0.2 plus 0.8. I think we're doing well here. Now we have to work on this here to see if we can get it flat at some point, and then the bus stop. We're gonna work now like from the flat one to the bus stop. So here we're gonna try as flat as possible. Here is like a 51%, and we're gonna carry until like the end of sector 3. Where does sector 3 end? Let me see. I'm just fine where it ends. Should be around here. On the blue, it's on the blue sign. Okay. Not enough on the brakes here. We didn't reach like the 50 something percent. Okay. Let's lock this. We're talking about like a 0.57. Let's try again. This was close. This was close. This was close. I'm looking at my feet here. I have to bring this back.
We've got big problems with that engine. I bet you lost a lot
No,
of
it's too
power.
far back now.
Looks like your car is toast. You'll need a tow back to pit lane. Press and hold the reset button and we'll come and get you.
Nope. Like, you have to be very, very, very subtle on the input. Like, Like you see, like if you look at my steering wheel, I'm turning like maybe like it's not enough. That's why like it's scary. I have to turn more my wheel. Hold on. I'm gonna break my hands like this. Okay. Oh. So let's maybe try later. Too late. So this is the idea. What we're saying? When he takes that flat, his wheels mostly straight.
We
After
got
this,
big
yeah.
problems with that engine. I bet you lost a lot.
I think like there's some like, and then like, I'm not gonna try to get it flat right now. I'm just gonna try to lift less and less. And we're gonna build it up to like, there's too much, we screwed it up, right? So here, let's like, I don't think it was bad. Like, it looks bad because I went on the gas too early, maybe. But, or too late, I don't know. .25, we're improving. Too much brake pressure. No! No. Too late. Like, if we can go like lift to 50%, that's not bad, right? Like this. Okay, this is good. So you know what? We should try to compare this with our optimal lap time. %. Yeah, like I think we can build it up to the... I do think we can build it up to the 50%, to the 100%. Maybe we can get like to 90%. Oh, like my wheel was not like... You see, like maybe we can build it up to the... Too late on the brakes here. Almost. We almost had it. Well, I think we found like the turning point. No. This was bad. Like this was like kind of a luck. That's a good idea. Let me try just one more time. Ah, we're so close. We're so close. Like the problem here, let's try to troubleshoot ourselves because this is also fun, right? So let's watch from behind.
We got big problems with that engine. I bet you lost a lot of
I
power.
think if we man, Storm, your nickname should be the hot dog guy because you love eating the sausages off the track. Let's see here. And yesterday we were seeing a guy like doing 102.2 in Knowlton Park, and he was eating the sausage like entirely. And like Craig and I were talking about like, yeah, Storm should be here. So let's do this. Let's try to troubleshoot ourselves for a bit because that's part of the exercise. What's happening to me is I can get it flat all the way here. Oops, not the one I wanted. Ah, man, damn. What happened? No, let's go back. Go back. Okay. So we can even see this one. Resets. So we are eating enough grass, which is good. Then here I'm actually modulating the gas. So I think I go all the way down to 30-something%. Which helps, like, you see how I had more space here? So if I had gone like higher on the gas, maybe like lowest 50%, I would have used like this space here. So let's see the next, not what we want, right? Yeah, like this is what we just saw. So let's go to the next one. No? Okay, here we go. I want to find like the one we tried to do flat, which is not this one. We just saw this one. So this one is almost flat, right? So there is more curb. You're totally right. You're totally right. Like this is one thing that I try to keep reminding myself. And if you didn't see, like Craig just commented, look where we're trying to go. It's just funny how our body knows what to do. It's just like funny. But here we are, like you guys cannot see it, but here we are like at 95%ish. I don't know why this thing doesn't catch like the replays. It catches his replay. It doesn't catch my replay. Instance, track temp. Let's see if I can get a replay here. Is it like a setting? Like an overall setting thing? It's probably somewhere here. I don't know. I'll have to look at this later. I really wanted to see like our whatever. So here we're almost going like 100%. Almost 100%. We miss, like, if you see what's going on with the car, we did use some of the grass. We turned in like where we tried to turn in the last time. And here, right here, the rear starts going to the left side. Right. My steering wheel is like 30 degrees to the right side maybe. And then like straight, trying to bring it in. Car is under steering. And then the car goes on the wall. It doesn't. It didn't quite go on the wall. I do think if we had like gotten the apex like the curb here, that could have helped. So let's see. Okay, that's the one that destroyed my car. Okay, I want to see this one. Feels like a little bit later on the turn-in, which means like we missed a lot. The inner curb, the car is sliding sideways. Just trying to keep it straight, Couldn't avoid it. We have more, okay. Yeah, this is what I wanted to see, like, the problem, like, this one I could hold. And I didn't lift, like, I'm looking my gas here, I never lifted. Like, the car kind of stalled there. But we have to get, like, the apex, like, the curb right to give us a better chance. But the rear kind of snaps to the left side. That's what I have to try to adjust. Let's see. You see? Let's try. So we know the rear is going to snap and they're going like a bit too late on that. Like you see the rear, we're like fully flat. Let me try a bit later. No, too late. Too early. If I hit a sausage, it's like, whoa. Like, let's go storm. Well, it's better to eat the sausage than to miss to the other side. Like, eating the sausage brings us in. We don't gain quite a lot of time. Oh, there we go. There we go. There we go. We did it. We did it. Hold on. I think we just did it. Not this one. Oh man. Let me see one thing. If I try to go back from here. Okay. This one, I think we did it. We did it. We did it. So I actually went more on the grass this time, you see? And I had like a later, because I went more on the grass. We did it. Okay. Let's try. No. Like, we're getting there. I think my wife's calling me. Just give me 1 second.
You cut that corner and got a slow down penalty. You've got wheel damage. Looks like your car is towed. You'll need a tow back to pit
Just
lane.
give me 1
Press
second.
and hold the reset button and we'll come and get you. We got damage on the front end.
Oi,
That aero damage is probably slowing you a lot.
tá tudo bem? Tá me passando muito mal? Tá sentindo que é náusea? Tá, eu vou ir subir. Beijo. All right, I'll try one more and then I gotta go. So let's do this together. We have to use as much grass as we can. Too much, too much, too much, too much, too much. I said once, maybe more than once. Maybe more wheel, maybe more wheel. Let's use more wheel than we can. Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay, more grass, more wheel in the beginning, and that's gonna keep the car inside. More grass, more wheel in the beginning, and then like too much wheel, but like we're flat. So now it's a matter of like getting how much is too much wheel in the beginning versus how much is not. Okay, so we got something. I wish I could stay another 2 hours nailing this track. But I think like next time we try to do like a hot lap here, we're gonna do better. I'm gonna call it for the day. Wife's not feeling well, so happened like a couple weeks ago, but she's fine. It's just like, it's fine. But I gotta take care of her. So here's the plan. We're gonna be here tomorrow again, working on this track. We might do some random races. So let me just see here. Let's quit. And I'm gonna take notes after this is over. But yeah, maybe tomorrow we go crazy and we go like farmers are racing in Winton, Virginia. That's a fun track. Which is it the full Virginia? North Course. Okay, that's the one that I know. So Friday's party day. We do whatever we want, but we're gonna practice more of this because we're almost there. Summit Point for the BMW Power Challenge. We might do it. Anyways, stay tuned. So tomorrow we usually get online like about this time, not like as early as we did because of we just did that early because of the lesson from the coach. But tomorrow about this time we're gonna be here, maybe a bit earlier, and I'll see you guys. Okay. Don't forget to subscribe, to like, and to follow us in the Discord server. We have a Discord server there as well. Yeah, maybe tomorrow we can practice together. That's a good idea, right?